Hello, everybody. I'm Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research, and I'm back for another eWEEK eSpeaks. This time, I'm joined by Ray Watson, the VP of Innovation at Masergy. Ray, you and I have known each other a long time. Masergy has actually been around a long time. It's not a name that some people might be familiar with. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Masergy, who I believe just celebrated its 20th anniversary, correct?
Correct. We're almost old enough to start drinking, I guess. But yes, it's great to be here. For anybody that's not familiar with Masergy at all, we are a 20-year-old software-defined network provider. So we built a ubiquitous global backbone 20 years ago and always had software-defined controls, even before that was really even a term, where we would let our customers on Ethernet circuits modify their bandwidth, their QoS, create VLANs, a lot of the things today that we would call SDN, and as well as SD-WAN, we were doing that on MPLS and VPLS from the very, very start. So we kind of pioneered software-defined wide area networking without intentionally pioneering software-defined wide area networking, if you think about it. And today what we do on that network is we provide connections. So we connect via SD-WAN, via fiber, via Ethernet, all kinds of access methods. We protect because we have integrated security solutions, and then we collaborate. So we also have full IP telephony stack and web collaboration. So that's connect, protect, and collaborate.
Yeah, I actually first got introduced to Masergy back in, probably almost 20 years ago when the company was first founded, but I was at Yankee Group. And I remember at the time, the company was built to handle Cisco telepresence. And so it was built for video. And the irony today is that just look at all the video we're doing because we're all working from home, right? So that's
Sure.
kind of cool.
But it's not quite telepresence. I don't know about you, but it's not quite full-blown telepresence on the video links that we have today.
I'd say the volume of video today certainly exceeds the volume of telepresence from the other day. And if you can handle that application, you can handle almost any application. So.
Oh, for sure. And it was purpose-built for extremely low jitter, right? Extremely low jitter. As a matter of fact, we guarantee sub 1 millisecond jitter between any two Masergy pops all over the world. Every continent, every country, everywhere that we operate, we guarantee sub 1 millisecond jitter. And that's why we were uniquely positioned to kind of be a pioneer in the telepresence space, was because that generation of video equipment was a little bit less tolerant for things like MPLS overhead on top of frame relay, on top of TDM, on top of IP routing. And so having a very specific purpose-built network was something that a lot of customers really wanted to put behind their Cisco networks.
Yeah, I know recently too, you guys have announced both an SD-WAN offering and a SASE offering. And those are kind of, I would say, funny terms in that the definition of SASE and SD-WAN, it really depends on, it's in the eyes of the beholder, right? So some people say that SASE especially has to be all cloud native. Other people say it has to be cloud managed. You've got equipment vendors offering SD-WAN and SASE. You've got cloud companies doing that today. And it creates this mixed bag of stuff for customers. Customers sometimes ask me, which is better? And I tell them, none of them are better. It really depends on your use case, right? So I know from you guys are one of the largest managed service providers, and you offer a whole bunch of different managed service offerings. And that flexibility of management actually helps customers deploy what they want and how they want. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the way you approach the management of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question too. The way that we look at SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, is the kind of the hype and the technology, the description for that is because it really truly is network-enabled security and security-enabled network and all based on cloud. That's always the way that we've approached networking from the get-go, right? We've always thought security is step zero. That's kind of an internal Masergyism. We've always thought that you have to have security throughout the entire development of design, implementation, everything, right? So it wasn't a big stretch for us because we were already doing cloud firewalls, virtual on the NFV side. We were doing virtual firewalls, hardware appliances, UTM. And when we have customers that ask us about SASE, and we do have customers asking all the time, as a matter of fact, our internal data shows a little bit over 90% of chief information officers are interested in SASE right now. So there's no question that it is definitely a topic for conversation. But to your point about some of the confusion in the marketplace, it's one of those things where everybody wants it, but they're not quite sure why. And so you really have to kind of take a step back and get away from a little bit of the hype and talk about what it is that you're trying to accomplish from a business standpoint. And these days, of course, it has a lot to do with the fortunate or surprise acceleration that we saw with COVID on digital transformation efforts. I think the joke is timelines went from 5 years to 5 days or something like that, right? And that's a really good fit for SASE. I mean, that's a really good piece because you want to be able to have workers do anywhere, anytime on the cloud, have it secure. Zero trust network access is a very, very big component as well. But we also have customers that, in addition to that, do want hardware managed firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and SIEM, and it isn't necessarily SASE in the classic definition. So the actual way that we deliver that is everything is driven around the performance that they're going to get, and we're taking a best of breed approach to things like CASB, to things like the secure web gateways, and we bundle that all together as a simple service so that the IT decision makers aren't necessarily spending a lot of time thinking about bells and whistles and bits and bytes, but instead we're really looking at security as an enabler in the business, right? A lot of times people think security is a hindrance to the business, right? But we really believe that being able to build secure networks and being able to show how they're secure lets people do a lot more things around innovation because they feel confident they can do so.
Yeah, and it seems the other benefit of the way you approach it is it lets people just retain the investment. Let's face it, security equipment's not cheap. Right? You buy those big FortiGates and Palo Alto firewalls, you're going to want to use them as long as you're possible. So
for sure.
Yeah. Now, along with the change in the network, right, a lot of SD-WAN and SASE focuses on transformation of the transport. The operational model needs to change as well. I know over the summer, you guys announced your AI-driven WAN, which is actually the coming together of AI ops and SD-WAN. So tell us a little about what exactly is AI-driven WAN.
For sure. So we actually, a little bit over a year ago, quietly launched for all of our existing customers artificial intelligence operations to observe, learn, and start making predictions, right? And so in the artificial intelligence operations world, that's where you basically blend the power of AI to basically do some of the tasks that you would traditionally think of a network engineer for. But where we are at right now is more along the lines of observe. So there is observing and it's predicting. If you think about the journey to fully autonomous networking, Zeus, it's kind of like the journey to fully autonomous car driving, right? There's steps along the way. And what we've actually seen so far from a use case standpoint is that AI can be a game changer for enterprises and for carriers both because it's a force multiplier, right? But where that is today is it's doing a lot of observation, a lot of prediction, but it's not taking autonomous action quite yet. We're step 3 on that 5-step journey. But in the very near future, it will be able to take autonomous action to improve network connectivity side, to optimize around cloud workloads, but it will always be supervised. So a customer might get an alert that says, we predict that your bandwidth needs to be increased by 12 megabits for the next 48 hours based on XYZ, right? The customer could say yes, no, or snooze, or come back to me in 15 minutes or whatever. So we're making this gradual journey towards it. And what's really exciting is the development time for each stage along the way is accelerating. So just like all of these things that happen, in the AI space, the computers get smarter and smarter and smarter, and they're able to make predictions, that humans might not even be able to see. Now, again, that's all Masergy customers have that, and we're not charging for it. So it's built into the service, which is a very popular portion of the offering.
Yeah. Well, that would be interesting. I've written a lot about how AI is in some ways the biggest technology change in tech since ever, maybe. So I'd be interested to see how this continues to evolve, what you guys do. Another area I thought you guys were interested in was I loved your new SLAs, and I want you to drill down on those because before I was an analyst, I was actually on the corporate IT side, and I would buy network services. And whenever I got the SLA sheet, I just throw them away because, frankly, they never meant anything, right? So, explain how you've changed your SLAs to actually make them meaningful.
Yeah, so it has to do with AI ops as well, because we have a very, very large data set about the performance of each and every one of our customers' networks, every packet, every service plane, every QoS, et cetera. we were able to come into the marketplace in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, by the way, and launch some service level agreements that are industry disruptive. And there's a few components to that. One of them is we're guaranteeing 100% availability to the cloud providers. If that's Amazon, that's Google, that's IBM SoftLayer. It's actually 200 cloud providers that are out there. We're guaranteeing 100%, even if you're at home, even if you're in a residential at home, as long as you can get to my network via IPsec SSL or via our SD-WAN at home product, as long as you get to my network, I can guarantee your performance to all of those cloud providers. But I can also design your network in a way that we will actually issue your SLA credits proactively. So you don't even have to go in and do anything if there's a credit coming. It just shows up, right? And because we have this AI ops and the big data sets, we were able to know exactly what the risk and impact would be on that. And it was actually surprisingly very, very little, because when we design things for HA, we simply don't have to get into those proactive areas. But they do get 1 millisecond jitter. They get 100% availability. On HA locations, they get 100% availability with proactive credits, and it's completely inclusive. Like on the SD-WAN side, there's no portions that we put the burden on the customer. Now, just between you and me, customers don't get too excited about SLAs, because if you're issuing SLA credits, you're doing something wrong. Yeah. But they do like the fact that we have skin in the game, right? So we're actually proactively ticketing, and we're now going to combine that with proactive credits as well.
Yeah, well, my historical experience with AT&T and Verizon has always been I got to prove to them that they violated the SLAs, and then I might get credits a year down the road. And then by that time, you've forgotten about it. So the fact that you're actually willing to put your money where your mouth is actually impressive. So the last topic I want to touch on is shadow IT. Right before the pandemic, actually, I met with you and we did this little quick rogue video on shadow IT. And I'd call it the biggest problem IT has today, because they really have no idea what users are using what shadow IT applications. So how do you guys help with that? Because I still believe that's one of the biggest challenges that IT faces.
Oh, absolutely. So just from a statistics standpoint, most companies are aware of 30 or 40 cloud applications that they have, and they could be running hundreds or even thousands, right?
Correct.
And this is a concern because it's involved in about a third of data breaches, right? About a third have something to do with somebody putting data into an AWS bucket or doing something that the IT group didn't know. So the way we approach it is, because I've got this incredible amount of granularity about your business applications, I can actually show you about 4,000. As soon as I turn up your SD-WAN locations, I'm plotting out and identifying 4,000 different cloud apps. And I'm also putting a risk score on each, right? So it goes from 5 to 1 based on the risk side, right? So for example, when TikTok was all over the news, their risk number went up and down. And then you as a customer get to tell us which are shadow and which aren't. Because if you say, Facebook video is totally allowed in my company, then we're not gonna flag that as being a risk to you, because you actually are aware of it. In addition to that, we rolled that out to our customers, and the feedback that they gave us, because we really closely monitor this, is they would love to know not just by location, but also by employee. So we added in identity right before COVID hit. So it was like perfect timing, right? We added in that identity component right when people were starting to work from home. And it's been a very, very big benefit for us on that side. As a matter of fact, Zeus, that's actually what led us to know that we have a very, very good viable product for guaranteeing network performance, even in residential areas, that we call that SD-WAN at home, and as well as an SD-WAN mobile for your phone, is because we actually know when people are intermingling their kids' traffic, their Zoom traffic with their business side, and we can prioritize and treat that differently for essential workers, for think like executives or people that absolutely need to be connected, at all times. So I will tell you that the SD-WAN at home product is extremely popular with everyone except for my kids, because they're not real crazy about getting second-class treatment on their Fortnite latency or whatever. But my performance is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So if you're a CIO today, trailblazing SLAs, you got to worry about shadow IT, SASE done, I guess, in sort of a managed way to reduce the complexity, and AI coming to a network near you. So thank you, Ray Watson from Masergy, for joining me. On behalf of Pete Springsberger, who normally does these eSPEAKS, I'm Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research, and wishing you all a happy rest of your.
Thanks for joining us on eWEEK eSpeaks. Go to eWEEK.com to hear more conversations with IT thought leaders.